Hello, welcome to my kitchen. Today I am showing you my family's dressing recipe. Now there are probably thousands of different ways to make dressing, but this is how my family has made it. I've got my grandmother's recipe right here, starting with the egg bread, and actually this was her mother's recipe. Who knows how many generations before that, but I know for sure this is what my great grandmother made, and I'm going to show you how to do that today. Now it starts with egg bread, and egg bread is basically a dense cornbread, and it's used for our dressing. Now, is it dressing? Is it stuffing? I will solve that issue right now. If it's stuffed, it goes inside your bird. If it's dressing, it's dressing. That's what we dress our bird with, so it goes on the outside. That's how you know the difference. Now I'm starting with my favorite cornmeal, and that's Hall's cornmeal. This is an extra fine blend, which I happen to love. And 2.5 cups are going in. There we go. I love Hall's cornmeal. And if you live in an area where you're not able to get Hall's or maybe an extra fine, just use what you have. But the texture of this is amazing. I absolutely love it. Now, to this cornmeal, I've got to get my glasses out for this because I only make this once a year and I do not know this recipe by heart. I'm adding 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. And I'm using a teaspoon of baking soda. I'm also using a teaspoon of salt. And now I'm just going to whisk this together. We happen to love this particular recipe. I think you enjoy whatever it is that you grew up on, or maybe not, but I know it is so good to have those familiar foods on these holidays. And it just creates tradition. Now I've got the wet ingredients. I'm adding 2¼ cups of buttermilk. And I'm also adding 2 eggs. And I'm just going to add this right into my buttermilk. That way I don't have to stir up the cornmeal to break the eggs. The less you stir, the more tender egg bread you're going to get. Just gonna take this and whisk it up and make sure that those eggs are all blended into my buttermilk. Now, my grandmother's recipe and her mother's recipe says to add 2 tablespoons of cooking oil. So if you want to go by the original recipe, then add 2 tablespoons of your cooking oil. I choose to use 2 tablespoons of butter simply because I like the flavor. Because I'm a firm believer that butter makes everything better. Now, I'm going to add these wet ingredients into my dry, and I'm doing it all at one time. Now, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of chopped yellow onion. We always use the yellow onion. It's just got a hint of sweetness, and we like a little bit of sweet in our southern cooking. And I've also got 1/2 cup of celery. Now I'm just going to stir this until it's all mixed together. I don't want to overstir it because I don't want my egg bread to be tough. So I'm just going to stir this just until it blends together. This looks perfect. See, egg bread is just a little bit thicker and richer than a cornbread, and it is perfect for dressing. Now, I have a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, and I've sprayed it with nonstick spray, and this is going right in. You might be asking, why are you adding your onions and your celery to your egg bread versus at the end when you break it up and you mix your other ingredients together? Well, one of the reasons is more flavor. If you don't cook your onions and your celery in your egg bread, then you'll have to saute them a little bit and sweat them, as they say. So you're eliminating that step, and it gives this egg bread so much flavor. There we go. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees, and this is going in anywhere from, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes. You just want this to be set and nice and lightly brown, not golden brown, because we're going to cook this again. We're just making the base. So in the oven this goes. Now, I made some egg bread earlier because I'm making 2 pans of dressing, and this has been sitting and cooling. You want it to cool off at least enough where you can actually work with it, because it would be very difficult to break up this egg bread in a really hot baking dish. Now, I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to start crumbling this. It smells so good. My mother makes the best dressing. I can follow the recipe exactly, but mine never tastes quite as good as hers. And something tells me that she feels the same way about my grandmother. Look at this. The rest of it is going to have to be done with my hands. Good clean hands are your best kitchen tool. Just want to break up any good pieces. And you know what? I think I want to taste just a little bit of this. It's nice and moist. That's so good. Those onions, celery, just give it extra flavor. Why add flavor at the end when you can add it all along the way? There we go. Now, I've got 2 pieces of regular white bread, and I'm going to tear it into small pieces. You can cut it if you want to, but my hands are already dirty. Why would I want to dirty up a knife? And then have to wash it. Catch my drift? And I'm just breaking this up into little small pieces. And this is going to add just a little bit more flavor and more texture to this dressing. There we go. All of that bread is broken up, and I just want to work it in to all of the egg bread. That way it's not all clumped together in one spot. This looks good. Now I have some chicken broth. Now I made my own chicken broth. When I have time, I just think it adds so much flavor. But there's been many times that I haven't had my own fresh broth. So don't feel bad if you have to improvise. Now I'm adding 3 eggs to this dressing. And I'm going to temper this just a little bit Get that all mixed up. There we go. And I am going to add about 2 cups of this chicken broth to these eggs. And just going to pour this right over the top. Now I plan on adding just a little bit more broth, but for now, this is going to be it. I'm also going to add a pinch of salt and some freshly ground black pepper. Now, I want to show you a couple of things. Our family does not use poultry seasoning or sage, but if you do, add this to your eggs and your chicken broth. A teaspoon of poultry seasoning or a teaspoon of ground sage is delicious in this. But my mother is watching me make this video, and I dare not add anything that I'm not supposed to, that's not in the original recipe. And I know I have been a complete rebel by adding the butter instead of the oil. But hey, Mom, you know me. I've got to throw a little bit of my own take into this. Now I'm stirring this up and just getting everything nice and moist and making sure that the eggs are all throughout, because the eggs are going to help this to set. Now, this looks good. Now I'm going to add about a cup more. And try not to make a mess. Now we are going to be serving this with some giblet gravy. And one of the reasons why I'm not adding the chicken to this, first of all, it's not in the original recipe, so I don't want to steer too far away from that. But we eat dressing with the giblet gravy. And the giblet gravy has the giblets and just some chopped dark meat chicken. And so that will be over the top of this dressing when we serve it on Thanksgiving Day. And that will add the chicken that we're looking for, or the turkey. This is looking pretty good. Now, this is going into the oven for about 30 minutes. I only want to cook this until these eggs are cooked and set. I don't want to cook it any longer. It's going to be a nice light golden brown. If you cook it too long, it'll dry out, and then you'll have to make twice as much giblet gravy. I'll see you back here in a few. The dressing is finished cooking, and I just have to say, it smells so good in this house. Oh, I love these aromas. It just reminds me of home. Now, this is really hot, but I've just got to have a little taste. Look at this. It's nice and moist. Like I said, you just want to cook it until it sets. If you overcook it, don't be afraid to add a little bit more broth. Now, let me just taste this. Oh my goodness. This tastes so good. Y'all have got to try this, and don't be afraid to make it your own. Add whatever you like to it. Listen, when I lived in Texas, I loved heat, so I would add cayenne pepper to this, but please don't tell my mother. She would not appreciate that one bit. Listen, you're a blessing to me. Thanks so much for watching today. Would you press the like button, share this with your friends, subscribe to my channel on Facebook and YouTube if you haven't already. And I just want to say, I hope that you have a very happy Thanksgiving. You're all in my prayers. I'll see you next time.